And joining us now, Kelly Bennett, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. Kelly, this is going to become a regular thing every Friday, isn't it?
Sounds like it. Do we actually have everything working for a change?
I think so. We got all the technology all integrated and compatible and communicating as it is supposed to. Appreciate you joining us today. What have you observed from across the great state of Mississippi the past week? Been a little quiet in the legislature. No big deadlines this week as we had last week. So each respective chamber is taking up the bills passed over from the others. What are you hearing? Anything?
Right. I think the big one's going to be the health crisis, the hospital situation. And we know this isn't just a statewide issue, it's a nationwide issue. They're talking about legislation that would provide an $80 million lifeline to financially struggling hospitals, Medicaid expansion off the table. That's even though Tim Moore with the Mississippi Hospital Association says it would certainly help out. I think we're all learning, Gerard. I mean, if you're paying any attention to what's going on with the many interviews we have on the SuperTalk network, that there's a big problem with third parties, BMs, the insurance companies that basically make it their business not to pay. And then the hospitals don't get paid as a result. So it's big. And the House Insurance Committee has been tasked with finding the root cause of rising drug prices and state health insurance premiums. Representative Hank Zuber was on with us earlier this week. He chairs that committee. And he's authored a bill, House Bill 1299, that would require specific charges for pharmaceuticals, drug prices, become public. And this would make it transparent so we can actually see who's paying what the rebates are. I was surprised to find the PBMs are already a third party involved. They're paying another party just to handle the rebates that they get on drugs.
Yeah. It's complicated for sure, and if you've ever tried to dig into those details and examine any of the many published flowcharts that show how the money shifts around between all the parties, including the PBMs, the insurers, the third parties that help them with the rebates, the pharmaceutical makers, the pharmacists, the patients, the providers, the hospitals. It's just amazing how convoluted that ecosystem is. You wonder if it's not intentional. They sort of keep it complicated so we can't figure out what's going on.
Well, and I think the average consumer gets frustrated by the whole thing, trying to figure it out, and they just quit looking into it and go, I'll just pay the dang bill. You know,
that's right.
Is it purposeful? Maybe. But you've got to need history on that, because that's how you kind of got into the whole news thing, I've heard you say.
Well, in politics in general, exactly right. It was 2008 when then candidate Barack Obama was promoting his plans for health care reform as a candidate. And I happened to just pay attention one day to him speaking at just like a town hall sort of event on the campaign trail. And I picked up on something he called shared responsibility was the terminology, the phrase that was associated with an employer's responsibility for the insurance coverage for their employees. And when I heard that, it sounded like it was going to cost a bunch of money, and I started calling around, and nobody could give me any details. And honestly, I got a little frustrated, not because they didn't have any knowledge of it, because I needed information, and it wasn't available to try to make business decisions. And that's how I got, honestly, interested in politics, and I guess the rest is history from there.
Well, let's go to
it's complicated. Okay, sure.
There's a groundbreaking date that's been set for the largest economic development project in state history. This is that $2.5 billion aluminum mill that'll be located near the Golden Triangle Airport. And this is going to create over 1,000 jobs, an average salary of $93,000. That's much above the national average. So very nice. Happy for people in that area who might be able to take advantage. And from what I understand, you don't have to have a college degree to get these jobs, Gerard.
Right. which is good news. I think it's a good project for the state. What about the governor's announcement yesterday that we're going to get $1.3 billion in funding of infrastructure? We've got Executive Director of MDOT, Brad White, on the program in an hour. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. I think we all are aware at this point how outdated and dilapidated our infrastructure is. We've got bridges that need repair. All you have to do is drive on a road in Mississippi in some areas to see that we really need to work on this. And infrastructure includes water, right? And I know we hear a lot about the water infrastructure in the city of Jackson, but it needs updating all over the state. So I think this is fantastic news. I, like you, I'm looking forward to hearing more about what Brad White has to say about this.
Any thoughts? Please.
Oh, I was going to bring up, it was Valentine's Day this week, right?
Yeah.
Something original in Mississippi. Apparently nationwide, marriages are down.
Yeah.
That's not happening in Mississippi. We're actually increasing marriages by nearly 7% year over year, and divorces are down in our state as well. Good news for a week of love, right, with Valentine's Day.
Oh, absolutely. Now that the field has been set for the statewide elections, and we are in the statewide election year, comes around every 4 years in an odd-numbered year. What do you think? Any thoughts on, let's say, the top of the ticket, governor, lieutenant governor? Any thoughts about that?
I kind of keep my vote kind of personal, Gerard.
Sure. Well, just about the races in general. What you're not asking for you to offer your preference on candidate personally, just about the races in general.
I think they're panning out about as we would expect. There have been some challenges to some of the people that are running for office, like Mandy Gunasekara. Her challenge was cleared yesterday through the state GOP. So we've still got a ways to go before the elections, Gerard. So I'm just going to.
It's heating up, though, Kelly. We're seeing the mudslinging already. Certainly in the lieutenant governor's race, maybe to a lesser extent. Not really, but I think what we could say is that the lieutenant governor, Delbert Hosemann, really didn't face any significant challenge in his primary. For lieutenant governor, and he had a fairly tepid challenge in the general election. That was kind of a foregone conclusion. But this cycle, he does have, I believe, a serious challenge in State Senator Chris McDaniel. So I think, and likely whoever wins the Republican, clears the field in the Republican primary is going to go on and win in the general. So the race for lieutenant governor, I think, is going to be decided in the primary. For governor in the general, but for lieutenant governor in the primary, it's going to be, I think, closer than many people believe.
Well, I remember McDaniel as a Tea Party candidate. I mean, he's been around for a while. And he was one of the people that was in the forefront of that movement, and I'm sure a lot of people remember his history there.
2014, he challenged then longtime Senator Thad Cochran. Very contentious race, really divided the state, fractured the state quite a bit, I think. But it was incredibly close, as you recall. And so, and then he had a couple other runs, but he's emerged and he has declared his candidacy. He's qualified. And so I think we have a race on our hands at a minimum, we can say, which will give us much to talk about. He's tentatively scheduled to appear on the program is Senator McDaniel next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is the tentative scheduling of his appearance. Of course, Lieutenant Governor Hosemann was on with Paul Gallo, as you know, yesterday. So I think
he had a lot to say.
He sure did, and we'll have much to analyze and discuss in our line of work here with these races setting up the way they are.
And just a heads up to our listeners, if you want to listen back to these interviews later on in full, just log on to supertalk.fm.
Appreciate that, Kelly. Always good to see you, and thank you for joining us today. Have a great weekend and week, and we'll talk to you again at the same time next week. Appreciate it, Kelly.
Thanks.
Kelly Bennett, multimedia journalist with SuperTalk Mississippi News, has been our guest on Middays. We are taking a break with Def Leppard bump on the side of this segment. Coming right back.